Wednesday until just now. All right, I've got 7:01. So this is a meeting, as you all know, that was the meeting from May 4th of 2021, which we recessed. So at this point, I'd like to reconvene our meeting and begin where we were on the agenda when the recess was called, and that is the consideration of the mill rate for the fiscal year 2021-2022. You may recall at that time, we did have a motion. We had the motion seconded. We had some discussion, and then mill rates were, this board approved the mill rates for the fiscal year in question. What we did at that time is, or after approving the mill rate, we recessed, knowing that the town of Bethel was going to be receiving some federal funds for COVID recovery. And we knew that the Treasury, which is the administrative arm, right, of the White House that's going to look at these rules, did issue rules as to how those funds can be utilized. And at this point, I think, Bob, Brad, you guys have had some information, some discussions. So if you don't mind, I'd like to turn it over to you. Okay. Just to get us up to speed as to what is the interpretation of those rules and what kind of usage may we have for of those funds for the fiscal year ending in 2022.
Okay, so Treasury issued on May 10th a document 151 pages long that indicates all the different uses, or they talk about how it can be used, but the main section on the revenue loss says recipients may use payments from the fiscal recovery funds for the provision of government services to the extent of the reduction in revenue experienced during COVID-19. There's other sites in here regarding loss of revenue, but that's one of the major ones that I saw. I went through about 75, 80 pages of the whole thing. There's actually a meeting on, and I don't think it really affects this committee, but there's a meeting on Friday morning with CCM, and they're going to, and Treasury is going to be part of it, and they're going to give us the fine details on how to use it. But considering that section, it's section C on page 51, I would recommend that we have a loss, and we reduced our revenue budget for interest income this year from 500 down to 200, and I would recommend using 250,000 of our funds. And the town is supposed to receive over the next 2 years 1.9, strictly the town. Board of Ed, somewhere around $3 million with a holdback from the state. And then the county piece, which is another 4 million, 4.8, based on the number of the population of the town of Bethel. And it's roughly around $190 a piece. But I'm not sure how they're going to distribute that, whether it's going to go to the state. It'll go to the state, but is the state going to move that to other towns, or is it just going to stay within the county? Maybe the bulk of it goes to Bridgeport and Danbury. I don't know. But we know for sure we're going to get 1.9. And so out of the 1.9, I would recommend using 250,000 to offset the revenue loss that we considered in our budget to reduce the mill rate to 34.26, which is a 0.52 increase in the mill rate, or 1.54%, rather than what we had before at 1.9%. So that's my recommendation at this point, and it will be the recommendation.
Okay. Robert, is your hand up? Is that a hand up function? Is anyone else seeing that, or is that just,
Not me.
am I seeing things? Okay. Yeah, sorry. I think I may have had my cursor where it wasn't supposed to be. All right. So Bob, let me just, can I summarize that? You summarized it well. This is really just from, I think, my benefit. I suspect my colleagues have got it, and I just need to go through this just one more time. So I think what you're saying is, look, these funds can be used for COVID recovery, including replacing revenues lost because of COVID. COVID had economic impact, drove interest rates down. Fed is working to keep those rates down, especially on the short end of the curve.
Mhm.
So we, in the initial budgeting process, we took interest income from 500,000 to 250,000
Well, we brought it down to 200, actually. It was
to
down to
two.
200. But I'm just saying, let's use 250,
Okay.
not the full 300. If you remember last year, fiscal year 20, we had a healthy revenue stream coming in on interest income, but it got hit really hard when COVID came in. I mean, interest
Mhm.
rates just tanked. I mean, we're getting maybe what, a 0.2, 0.3, 20 basis points, 30 basis points on our money now. Back then, we were making close to 2%, 1.5, right, Brad? Somewhere around there.
So Bob, it looks to me that we're applying the 250 to debt service. Is that correct?
Well,
I
no,
can't-
revenue on a revenue budget
Yeah.
on the interest income that we were planning on receiving. Last year, we had 500,000 and we exceeded that a little bit. Last year being 630.20. So this year, because the interest rates are so low, we had to cut back that revenue estimate. And we brought it down to 200,000 from 500,000.
Mhm.
And, right now, we don't see that coming in. The interest rates are really low. Like I said, 20 basis points, 30 basis points, maybe somewhere in that range.
I don't think we hit 2 before COVID, but I think it was a solid 1.5,
Yeah, yeah.
150 basis points.
So that's a lot higher than
Yeah.
what we're earning now.
Okay.
So it won't take us all the way back to the 500,000, but it will, it looks like it'll get us to 90%
Mhm.
of what was in the fiscal year 21 projection of 500,000.
Correct. And it's a conservative estimate right now. I mean, we do receive the funds over a 2-year period. So, I mean, if we see that it doesn't materialize, interest rates don't increase over the next year, we can use part of it for the next budget too.
Yep.
So,
So Bob, we had some other losses as well, right? We had Parks and Rec losses, or reduced revenue, right, for this budget season. Can we use some of those monies to offset that as well, or no?
you could, but I would like to be conservative in this approach. I wouldn't want to use it for I mean, again, you'll be able to, pick that piece up if it doesn't. And right now, Park and Rec looks like it's picking up. I don't know what's going to happen in the fall and into December, but revenue is starting to pick up. The camps are starting to fill up. The first day that I might have mentioned at the last meeting, the first day that signups were available, the third-party server crashed because they couldn't keep up with the volume.
That's good.
So,
The other thing, Daleen, is when the Board of Finance reduced the Park and Rec budget by $100,000 in expenditures, we can't add back the 100,000 in revenue to offset it. If the board decides to add back the expenditures, at that point, we could add back the 100,000 because then you need to balance the budget. So we need to save that piece anyway for them.
So I apologize. Do you two know what we have in for the projected revenue for Parks and Rec for the year?
Projected for the end of the year, no, because this is such a busy time for them and they get half their money in the last quarter. And like camp's been coming in, but people sign up, but they don't pay right away because they don't have to pay right away. So it's hard to say right now.
Okay. But your best bet, Bob, that it's not prudent to use any of this money to offset any potential revenue loss for Parks and Rec.
I don't think so. I think a solid use of it would be with the interest rate. We know exactly where they are, where the Feds say they're going to go with the interest rates over the next year and a half. Park and Rec revenue is a bouncing ball right now, so I wouldn't put it there,
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And just to carry through on that, Bob, again, putting the pieces together, it sounds like what you're suggesting is the 250 to apply to interest income, we can do the math. And so that fits pretty nicely. we can't do linear math on the programs because we don't know where they're going to come out. However, if we find ourselves next year still impacted by COVID, maybe we use more money. We can use some of this money for fiscal year 23. Right. I think that's what.
Correct. We have a better handle at that point on that,
The other thing when you're doing the fiscal year 23 budget is if Park and Rec revenue is not going to be as high as it traditionally is, you could put the expenditures back in. If at that point, you can backfill with this money. We'll have a lot better knowledge of what we can do with it then.
I like the idea. Right, it gives some relief to the Bethel taxpayers. I know we'd like to do more. We're a little bit limited by what the federal regulations provide for. We still have maybe some uncertainty for the next year, and this seems like a prudent approach to address the current or the fiscal year 22 while keeping a little bit of dry powder for fiscal year 23. So Bob, Brad, it seems Solomon-like to me. Very wise. I don't know. My colleagues, we'll have to go through the process of, I think, making an amended motion, some motions, an amended motion. But before we get there, provided our resident Robert's Rules police officer doesn't object, I'd like to go that route and maybe just ask you if you have any further questions or just insights for Bob and or Brad.
I'm good.
No questions for me.
I'm good. Thank you.
So procedurally, right, I believe we will first need to vote to amend the mill rate motions made at the last meeting, and then make motions to establish the new mill rate as Bob and Brad have laid out in this analysis. So to that effect, or to that end, do we have, I'd like us to entertain a motion to rescind the mill rate motion made during the first night of the May 4th Board of Finance special meeting with respect to the mill rates for both auto and personal/real property.
Well,
Second.
can I just
Yeah,
mention, this isn't going to change the auto. The auto stays the same. Yeah.
Understood, but I thought we did one motion
I think
last.
Did you?
No, they were two separate motions.
We're two separate?
Okay.
I
Okay.
think,
So,
sorry, I'm almost positive that they were. I can look real quick.
I've got the minutes, yeah. Fire. Dion, do you happen to have them?
Yep, I'm looking at them right now.
Thank you.
No, I'm sorry. It was all in the same motion. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I'll
That
need-
was- that was my recollection. Okay.
Yep.
So the motions there are the suggestion of the motion is there. Would anybody like to make that motion?
I'll make that motion. So the motion is to rescind the mill rate establishment from the last meeting of 33.7,
No, 34.38.
34.38, right?
And for personal and real property, and 32 for auto.
Autos.
Okay.
Do we have a second?
A second.
Second. Assume we don't need discussion, but I'll ask. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now we need a new motion.
So
And that
we
motion-
would- so we move to establish a mill rate for the upcoming fiscal year at 34.26 and the mill rate for personal property of 32.
Actually, I think it's for personal and real property will be the 34.26.
34.26,
And
right,
for auto, it'll be 32.
32, right.
Okay, thank you for that motion, Robert. Is there a second?
A second.
All right. Discussion. Not hearing any discussion. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay.
Aye.
That's it. I believe that is the last item on the agenda for the May 4th special meeting, which was recessed to this evening and reconvened earlier.
I move
So,
to adjourn.
A
Second,
second. Third.
That's a quick one.
all those in favor of the motion to adjourn, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, we're done.
Thank you.
Uh,
you.
Robert, Brad, thank you very much for
You're
doing
welcome.
the research here. And, look, I read treasury regulations for a living. So for you to read 150
One.
pages of dense stuff, God bless you.
And on and on.
Lawyers get paid by the word, or so is the suggestion. All right, all. Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Have a good
Night.
Take care.
Bye.